Well, hello from Perfect, a Sirius 40DS. It's the 17th off of their production line, and we're in the gap between the Barbados and the Windward Islands of the Caribbean. I'm not sure that I should be making this video with the state that I'm in. We crossed from Tenerife to Barbados mainly in February, because we left on the 31st of January from Tenerife 23 and got here about the 17th of February. And the reason that I'm not in a particularly good state to make this video is the fact that I've just settled down to a really nice sail. We had a good time coming across the windward, the trade winds, and you're actually meeting me, Steve. I ended up ultimately retiring and getting this Sirius built in 2018 at Fluen in Germany. It was after a lot of research and decisions about what type of boat we wanted. Sarah thought that a 36 would be big enough, but when you add all my maintenance and tools and things together, a 40 foot is still not big enough. Anyway, that's a different story. The crossing from Tenerife to Barbados was exciting, to say no least. Sarah had more or less committed that she was going to bloody well do this come hell and high water, and it was hell and high water together. Most of the crossing was at fairly high speed. We had a force 5, 6, 7 and sometimes a force 8, gale force 8 behind us, and it taught me a little bit about the rig that's safest and most controllable in conditions like that, when the wind is right behind you. Getting a stable rig when the wind is behind you is a bit of a task. I ultimately found out that the main was practically useless. It caused so much turning to the boat that you were luffing up to windward too much, and the best combination that I found after several trials was quite weird. It's basically poling out the Genoa to windward. But that's only part of the story. The problem is that you end up luffing up to windward, and the wind gets behind the sail and all hell breaks loose, especially if it's a 4, 6, 7, maybe even an 8. And a way to keep the Genoa full of wind was to actually put the cutter up on the proper side. So you ended up making up pretty much a spinnaker. Genoa poled out to windward and the cutter to the opposite side, the downwind side, the normal side for the cutter. And the pair together gave a little slit for some of the leakage to go through between the two forestays. And with the pole in, it seemed a pretty good combination. And it ended up being quite stable and also controllable, so that if the wind got too much, as it did in some cases for the full Genoa, all you do is just roll in a bit of Genoa, roll in a bit of cutter not very often really, just rolling in the Genoa was enough. With a force 8 behind you, well, that's equivalent to something like about a force 6.5 behind you, because you're doing 7, 8, 9, 10. In fact, I saw 11 and a half knots on the speed, several times. But with a full Genoa, that was too much. So you had to bring it in, and sometimes I brought in half of the Genoa and still had a full cutter. And that made a pair of sails at the front, which really did cater for the wind behind. Always the problem is wind getting behind the sails, and then you get a lot of noise and flapping and jerking as the sails refill from time to time. But you don't want to learn too much about sailing, I don't suppose. We are now just exiting the wind shadow behind Barbados, and you might see Barbados over my shoulder there. And I'm planning and hoping that we get into Union Island, Clifton, probably at daybreak or a little after tomorrow morning. The reason I'm doing this video now is that apparently I'm drunk, or nearly drunk, and it's some of the nicest sailing that we've had so far. So there you are, you can see again with the wind behind us almost directly. If I have a look at the Windex, you'll see that. Actually, I can know if you can see it or not. Yeah, the Windex at the top of the mast is currently between the reference arms, more or less, and the wind's behind us. Now, you'd think that would be pretty good, but in reality it leads to a lot of rolling, and that's what's happening at this second. Quite a lot of rolling, which if you're in bed or trying to get a kip is a bit of a piss take really, because you don't know which side to go on to be safe in one corner. Anyway, as far as the boat is concerned, the sails are full, the sails are quiet, and down there, I don't know if we can zoom in on it. Ooh, there we go. It looks like we got 5.1 of boat speed and 7 knots of wind on top of the boat speed. So the wind at the moment is around about 12 or 11, 13 knots. Now I could use a cruising chute for that, but the reason I'm not using the cruising chute is that it's a bit of a pig to handle. I can do it on my own. I'm not afraid to do it on my own, but if we were going any faster than the 5 or 6 knots that we're doing, we'd arrive at Union Island before it was light. So, in part, that's the reason I'm not using the cruising chute at the moment. And with it being so nice, I might even have yet another beer. Anyway, just look round quickly. We've got a cargo ship ahead of us. That's probably indicated over there on the Raymarine. Try to zoom in there. Yeah, it's the one that's close to us, not the one that's a long way off. We're heading out of a place called Speightstown, which is in the northwest of Bridgetown. Sorry, not northwest of Bridgetown, northwest of Barbados, and that basically is Barbados to the right there. I'm just refining the direction that we're travelling. I've just taken 5 degrees to port, just to make sure that our course is correct. That green arrow pointing to our left is that ship ahead of us, and the other one further away we can't see. So out there somewhere in a minute you should see, we get a bit of view, that cargo ship. Yeah, pretty much straight ahead of us there, just slightly to the right of the Genoa. So I think I've covered most things. It's almost dead ahead of us at the moment, just behind the target arch corner there, and under the sail, so it's difficult for me to show you it, but it's a cargo ship out there in the distance. He'll be long gone because they don't travel at anything less than about 12 knots. We're doing, what, 5.5, so he'll be long gone. I suppose one of the comments to make about what we've done up till now is that when we had the the trade winds behind us at stupid strong strengths, we ended up with a force 8 at sort of 3 or 4 in the morning, by which time, if you can see in the Genoa there, down the middle of the Genoa there's a line where it's made in 2 halves. I'd rolled up all of the first half of the Genoa and some of the cutter because of the force 8. Now, force 8 is pretty bloody awful if you're travelling towards the wind, and gentlemen apparently never sail to windward. And I think I agree with that. Not that I'm a gentleman or so. Anyway, with such a small sail, handkerchief size, plus a little bit, we were in well in control and travelling occasionally 7, 8, 9, 10 knots. Some of it was surfing down the front of the waves, and some of it was wind power. But I think at the moment we got some of the nicest sailing that's possible. Wind behind us, stable sails, blue skies, possibly Barbados in the background there. I'm trying to come round, but I can't go any further that way, so I'll try and flip to the other side. Yep, I can see Barbados there, moving around. We're on a course of about 240 at the moment, which should take us just slightly south of the Tobago Keys and around to Union Island. And that's where we should be able to check in to Clifton, which is part of the St. Vincent group of islands. And then we're only 4 miles away from the Tobago Keys, where hopefully I can spend my 69th, maybe even a little bit of scuba diving, and with any kind of luck at all, either of the kids or both of the kids joining up with us there. Can't think that I've got too much more to add to that at the moment. We're still doing 5.9 or 6 knots. That worries me a little bit insofar as I think we might get in before daylight. I'd prefer to slow down a bit, and as we've got time on our side, for one of the first times in ages, I've started fishing. You can see the fishing rod there. I don't know if you can see the rod and the line over the top. I suppose there's something to say about that, really. Say about that, not sail about that. And that is that you've got to put on bait which is adequate for fish that can swim as fast as the boat is going. Well, the boat is doing 5.5 to 6.5 knots, 5.6, 5.5 at the moment. But we've been up to 6.5 as well. And the problem with that is, if you catch a fish at that speed, it's going to be a big fish, and that's going to require quite a lot of work to haul it in. Not so much on the rod, but the work is, you're going to have to slow the boat down, because you're never going to pull a big fish in at 6 knots of sailing speed. So I put the rod out when we were doing 5.5, and I put on a slightly smaller lure, and now things have changed a bit. We're doing 6.1, 6.2, 6.5, 6.9, 7 knots at the moment. I don't know if you can see it down there. I don't know if it will stay at 7, but it was certainly near 7. Yeah, there, 7.2, look. 7 and 9 is 16, that's 16 knots of wind speed. Well, if I was to catch a fish at this speed, the bugger would be too big for me to haul in at this speed. It would be fighting me, it might even break the line. Oh, I just noticed the freighter. When we dip a minute, you'll see it. There she goes. Out there on the horizon now. I say freighter, it's more like a cargo ship. A couple of cranes on board. Not quite sure what that would mean. I think she's more a cargo ship than anything else. But anyway, I've just seen 7 knots again on the speed. So I hope I don't catch a shark, because I'm never going to pull the bloody thing in. It'll probably just bite it off and run away with it. But if we were at 5.5 knots, then I think the fish size would be sensible to try and pull in. But if speed is a problem, if I can leave the rod where it is and let it fight with the fish for a while, it might tire the fish out, but also give me a chance to knock some of this speed off. And all I've really got to do is just feed out the Genoa sheet and reel it in or wind it up so we make it a lot smaller. And then the boat will slow down and I get a chance to haul the fish in, whatever the fish might be. Well, it's looking a little bit more boisterous. We started out this morning at 4 knots, but we were in the wind shadow of Barbados. I knew it would grow a little bit, but I didn't expect to see 7.4 knots, which is what it's saying at the moment. But mind you, 7.4 knots plus 10 knots of the wind on top of that is 17, 18 knots, which is force 4. Force 5 isn't far away. So I'm going to wind this up now and hope that it's a bit of interest to any of you, or some of you, whoever end up seeing this. This is the Sailing Yacht Perfect, a Sirius 40 deck saloon, number 17 off of the press, launched in November-December 2018, where we did a year's sailing and then wrapped it up for 2 years in the pandemic and got back to it in February 2022. Did a little bit of sailing around the Med, putting the boat back into good order after some problems and storage problems, battery problems, and here we are between Barbados and the Windward Islands. Thank you very much. This is Steve Welsh. Sarah's down below, avoiding my drunkenness. She'll probably take over whilst I go and have a kip, and I'll talk to you again when the opportunity arises. Steve Welsh, Perfect, signing off. Oh, I think it's March the 2nd, 2023. Bye for now.